Gators Breakdown episode 33 is live after the 30-3 Outback Bowl win for Florida over Iowa. 30-3. That means the Gators end the season 9-4. Could have been 10-4. Of course, the canceled game against Presbyterian. But with the win over Iowa in the Outback Bowl, 30-3, Florida improves to 9-4 and sets up some positive going into 2017 season. I'm your host, David Waters, here for Gators Breakdown. You can find us on Twitter at Gators Breakdown. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. GatorDave_SEC. That's on Twitter. You can find Gators Breakdown on Facebook as well. All those things, for social media. And also the podcast can be found on SoundCloud. You can subscribe there on iTunes as well. Subscribe there. Leave a review if you wouldn't mind. If you listen to Gators Breakdown on a consistent basis, you can get it in all those places and show up right on your phone, audio version. Or if you're checking it out now, as of course you can just, see it live on YouTube, and all of them live there as well. All those different venues for Gators Breakdown. So, mentioned, 30-3, big win for Florida in the Outback Bowl down in Tampa. Good crowd, definitely not filled up to the top of the stadium. A good Gator show in there, as you could tell by the broadcast there. Terrible broadcast, by the way. I usually like Mike Patrick, but that was a terrible broadcast by ESPN. But more on that. Actually, I won't spend more on that. I'll just leave it at that. But 30-3. We'll go dive into some stats. This will just be a quick review of the game, of how Florida was able to basically blow out Iowa. Iowa, had some pretty much respect coming into this game with the way they ended the season against Michigan, where they won 14-13, against Illinois, where they won 28-0, and against Nebraska in the season finale when they won 40-10. So they were, had a little bit more respect coming in. They definitely ended the season better than Florida did coming into this game after Florida got blew out by FSU and Alabama. But, in those games, Iowa, their offense still wasn't really putting up a good bit of numbers there. Ranking coming into this game, they were 120th, even worse than Florida in total offense ranking there, 115th in passing, 67th in rushing. And that win streak I mentioned, against Michigan, they had 230 total yards, only 66 passing, 164 rushing. In Illinois, where they won 28-0, they still only had 80 yards passing, 262 yards rushing. And against Nebraska, where they won 40-10, have 408 total yards, a bit better there, but still only 144 yards passing, 264 yards rushing. So in this game against Florida, only 226 total yards. And kind of continuing the trend that I just went back, and looked at, 55 yards passing against the Gator defense, and only 171 yards rushing, which is down for them. It was a good showing for their running backs, but not enough big plays for Iowa to get on this Gator defense. But being able for this Gator defense to control C.J. Beathard, he was never able to get going. Florida abused him. Randy Shannon, his first game called as DC since Jeff Collins took the job at Temple. We saw some blitzes we haven't seen some delayed blitzes we haven't seen. And you guys know, you listen to this podcast, I was a big Jeff Collins fan. Had nothing wrong with Jeff Collins, but I did like seeing some aggressiveness that we haven't seen. And, of course, Iowa hadn't seen on tape since Jeff Collins was defensive coordinator, and now Randy Shannon steps in, shows some things Iowa hasn't been able to see. Of course, that was one advantage coming into this game, being a new coordinator. Iowa had no idea what Randy Shannon was going to do. If they wanted to look at, they have to go back to his Miami days, some stuff maybe he, did there. But that was about it. So that, Florida had some newness, even with all the young guys. Those young guys, Chauncey Gardner, Vashawn Joseph in particular, really stepped up for this young Gator defense. Of course, we know they were playing without Jared Davis and Alex Anzalone. Even David Reese was out. He's been playing well. But you had to give it up for true freshman Vashawn Joseph and Chauncey Gardner for, stepping up again with this. And I mentioned going into this game with the way I was being able to run the ball and their kind of trouble passing the ball. It was going to be, this game needed to look like the LSU game in terms of effort from this Florida defense. And we saw it. Iowa had a 4th and goal on a goal line. in the game and got stuffed on a 4th and 1, similar to what we saw in the LSU game. And yeah, I mean, you saw it. That was the effort was there. Plenty of other short yardage situations where this Gator defensive line really just fired out the ball, got in the backfield, and really controlled this Iowa run game. Like I said, they give up yards, but they didn't give up the big play. And with all the young guys on the team, all the young guys that had to play in this game, the bend don't break worked out. I would miss field goals. Florida stopped them when they really needed to. That's kind of the way it needed to play out with all the young guys on defense. They weren't going to be dominant the entire game, but they were very opportunistic. We saw the turnovers and very, played with a lot of effort, definitely in stopping those short goal line yards. So I mentioned Iowa's total yards, 226, Florida 331. Austin Appleby even, passed the 2 interceptions that he had early. Ahmad Fullwood on the first one, he has to help his quarterback out. As big as he is, he never able to go up and attack the ball in his career at Florida. If throw was a little bit behind him, it could have been a better throw, but I think he still has to, we've seen it time and time again from Ahmad Fullwood go and attack the ball. So not totally on him, not totally on Appleby, kind of a combination of the things there that led to that one. But Appleby has 222 yards, 14 to 25. About 9 yards completion per completion, 109 yards total for the Gators rushing. Only averaged 3.4 yards a rush there. 8 penalties for 60 yards. I mentioned the 2 turnovers from Appleby. A close one also, Antonio Callaway's fumble there didn't turn out to bite Florida at all. The time of possession, Florida was actually lower than Iowa, 28-45 to 31-15. I'm going to go back and, I've mentioned Austin Appleby, his 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 222 yards. But the drive of the game, first drive after halftime, after Iowa had their first drive, this was a 12-play, 80-yard drive that took 6 minutes and 47 seconds off the clock. This drive, Florida was up 10-3 already. But this drive made it, kind of sealed the game with the way Iowa was never really able to do anything. With this drive, Florida took a 17-3 lead. They converted 3 third downs. Austin Appleby was 5 of 6. This was the first drive after halftime, after Iowa missed the field goal, I believe. Yeah, it's going the second half, right after halftime. I wasn't able to convert theirs. Florida started deep in their own territory. Jordan Scarlett had some runs on one drive. Florida wasn't able to capitalize on it. So this was the second drive for Florida in the second half. Found Tyree Cleveland for a touchdown, but a mysterious flag was thrown for, we still don't really know if illegal motion was called. But play calling and the execution stayed the course, and Appleby later found Goolsby on a 3rd and goal. But that, to me, that was the drive of the game. Appleby, one of the best. Honestly, it was the best drive of the game. Of course, but also one of the best drives of the season. I think we've seen from this Gator offense. I tweeted Florida got in the red zone on that drive, and I said this is kind of where we'll tell. What can Florida do in this game? They could score in the red zone. They would be able to, probably maybe put this game away, and they did. But basically scored 2 touchdowns on that drive. The first one to Cleveland that didn't count, and of course he found Goolsby on 3rd and goal there. So it was a big 3rd down conversion there, and really, it was good, nice to see. Of course, we've all had our complaints of Doug Nussmeier's play calling in the red zone. You guys know I'm not much bigger fan. I mean, I'll defend him a little bit. I'll defend Nussmeier more than most. I think he deserves one more year with a quarterback that's coming out next year, but we'll see what happens there. But I really thought it was a nice red zone drive, nice drive altogether, being able to put something together there and take a 17-3 lead, which pretty much, still the game for the Gators there. I mentioned some running game stats. Jordan Scarlett, I tell you what, and I mentioned that drive where Florida started deep in their own territory on their own goal line. He had a 9-yard run and then a 46-yard run. I tell you what, a couple of those runs, his footwork, the way he stutter steps and the way he can make defenders miss, I tell you, that was some big time runs there. I mean, there were plenty of times tackles Iowa could have made in the backfield, and Jordan Scarlett just really made something happen. The run blocking in the first half left a lot to be desired. And the second half came out much better, but those two runs were mostly Scarlett and Scarlett alone there. It was a really, really, really nice runs there, and it shows the potential that we see with Jordan Scarlett. Where if he can get a quarterback, and of course, it speaks for the whole offense, they can get a quarterback where this box can't be loaded against Jordan Scarlett and these Gator running backs. We'll see more runs that tight. We'll see more of these types of runs. All hinges on getting that quarterback, but I mean, give it up for Mark Thompson as well, taking that screen pass. Probably one of the most surprising plays of this Gator season. One I never expected to see with the way Thompson kind of finished the year. Didn't really play a lot. Being able to make some guys miss on that running back screen and scamper, basically 80 yards there for the first Gator touchdown. I mean, where was that at? We've seen flashes, a little bit of potential of that happening, but it couldn't hang on to the ball. Had a big time fumbling issue. We heard about that in preseason camp. It reared its head again during the season a good bit, where Mark Thompson just couldn't hang on to the ball. But good for him getting that running back screen and taking it. Had a funny tweet during the game. It kind of reminded me and likened me of the Ahmad Fullwood screen pass that he took to the house in the Birmingham Bowl a couple years ago when DJ Durkin stepped in for Will Muschamp's firing there. And I was like, maybe that's the spark for Ahmad Fullwood to get something going. That didn't work. Maybe this is a spark for Mark Thompson to get something going there. For his career at Florida, I know he had big expectations coming into this year, but it was Jordan Scarlett who was the main bell cow for this Gator team in the run game. So I mentioned Jordan Scarlett, 14 carries, 94 yards, average 6.7 yards per carry. I mentioned he had the 46-yard 46-yard run there. Mark Thompson near 80 yards. I said on that completion was 85 yards on that screen pass. Generally, Callaway was involved a good bit early. You could tell in the game plan there. 7 receptions, 55 yards, average 8 yards completion there. Andre Goolsby with 2 catches, 1 for a touchdown, 27 yards. Freddie Swain also got involved. The first catch we've seen from him in a good bit. Tyree Cleveland had a touchdown taken away that shouldn't have been taken away. He had 1 catch for 16 yards. Brandon Powell had 2 for 15. After getting used a bit in that Alabama game, you didn't see much of Brandon Powell in this game for the Gators. I did kind of mention to help the running game. I still wondered why we didn't see more of the. You've heard me scream for this. I don't know how many weeks in a row, but the zone read that Austin Appleby ran in the South Carolina game a bit. This was his last game. There was nothing to lose. Maybe especially late in the game. I mean, if you're going to run it his first start back when he started against South Carolina, what's the scare of running it here in his last game? I didn't understand that, but can't complain too much with a good win here. I'd like to see Florida step on the throat a little bit when they went up. By those few scores, had some good field position, but necessarily couldn't take advantage of it. Probably got a little bit conservative, a little. I'm sure the players thought in their head the game was pretty much over, so they weren't really firing out the ball like they were in the third quarter. But there are many chances there in the fourth quarter where they really, really, really could have put this game away and shown some more offensive spark there for them. So defense, I'll move to the defensive side of the ball, still dominating. Even with all the injuries, that was good to see. Marcel Harris, 9 total tackles. He was everywhere. Daniel McMillan had one of his best games, his last game as a Gator. Good to see from the Jacksonville First Coast guy. I'm here from Jacksonville, so I wanted to see him do well. He didn't necessarily live up to the expectations a lot of us had. Vashawn Joseph, going to be one of the next great good linebackers. I'll calm it down. Maybe not great. We'll see more. But he'll be one of the next good linebackers for Florida. He was everywhere in the field. It kind of did remind me of the way Jared Davis plays. Just it was a missile. He was all over the field, hitting when you come to hit him. He's bringing the wood. It was really, really good to see from a young guy. He's a freshman. Plenty more we'll see from him. Took from the coaching from Randy Shannon really well, I think. So Vashawn Joseph will be definitely a name to look out for there. I mentioned Daniel McMillan with his 7 total tackles. He also had that interception. Joey Ivan, his final game, nice to see, 5 tackles. Christian Garcia got a start, walk on. Linebacker, the depth we talked about, there was the issue there with all the injuries for Florida. He had 5 tackles. So CeCe Jefferson, Caleb Brantley, Kerry Clark, 3 tackles there. So all in all, a good showing. As I mentioned, the effort on defense, that's what needed to be there. And it was. Can't forget Chauncey Gardner. His playmaking ability after the interceptions he made, first taking the first one back for pick 6, and then the second one almost being able to take that one back for pick 6 as well. And it was really, really, nice to see Chauncey Gardner. He caught a little flack in that FSU game for some being out of position a little bit when Florida had some injuries and, really needed to step up. But all in all, Chauncey Gardner, I think, a really good freshman year, a lot to build on. Him, Marcel Harris coming back in the secondary next year, I think really will help this secondary and this whole defense that we going into the season. Oh, there's so many starters. What are they going to do next year? Well, with all the injuries, that is the silver lining of those injuries. These young guys got a lot of playing time. We've seen them make plays time and time again. David Reeves, Vashawn Joseph, Chauncey Gardner. There's plenty of guys there. Jabari Zuniga, maybe he can be more consistent in the sack game where he started the season very well against overmatched opponents. He played well. That's where he got most of his sacks. To see him take the next step. Antonius Clayton got some playing time. So we've seen these young guys, because of the injuries, have to step in and show up. Now, can they do it when their number is called, when they are the guy? Remains to be seen. But, I said it and I'll say it again. When's the last time Florida had a bad defense? You can nitpick and go to 2007. We remember that. All the stars they lost off that 2006 national championship team. But that was it was not a Florida standard defense by any means. A lot of young guys there that year, but we'll see. That year, of course, they took their lumps and were able to really come back in 2008 and do something. But 2007, while it wasn't a Florida standard defense, it wasn't a terrible defense. Not just what we're used to seeing, but it's been forever since probably sometime mid-'80s since Florida's had a bad defense. So, with the athletes you get from Florida, these guys know how to play some defense. And the coaching Florida has, starting with Rainey Shannon, who, in my mind, proved again today he should get the defensive coordinator position job. With that, I think these young guys and the guys they got returning next year, it's a good start for this Gator defense. So that's the Iowa wrap up. Florida wins 30-3 in the Outback Bowl. Like I say, it's a good win. Jim McElwain kind of needed this win. It was just kind of been a stagnant program a little bit, even though winning the East 2 years in a row, which I think is a good feat, and it beats the alternative. It beats sitting at home in Atlanta, or while the teams are playing in Atlanta that first week of December. It beats the alternative. You'd rather be there than not be there. Yes, you'd like a better showing, but you're not Georgia sitting home, you're not Tennessee sitting home, and you're not, you don't have the big expectations Tennessee had this past year, and not living up to them. So, it could be worse. I know a lot of people don't think it can be because of the way recruiting's going and all that, and we'll get into that. We'll dive into that in the weeks to come, and the shows to come here on Gators Breakdown, but. This Iowa win in the Outback Bowl, hopefully it sets up for something big. You can tell these players wanted it, especially after last year's bowl debacle against Michigan. This was nice to see. So it sets up, maybe some recruits, sways them a little bit if they're, torn between Florida and another school. Maybe that gets them shifted towards Florida. There was a picture even floating around today. It may not mean much. It could. Alex Leatherwood, 5-star offensive lineman, committed to Bama. He was at the Outback Bowl today, watching the Gators in live action. So we'll see if that means anything. It probably doesn't, but he was there. So maybe it sets up something, but still get some positive mojo around this Gator program, because it beats losing this game. And of course, everybody complaining about recruiting and losing another bowl game and going on another losing streak to end the season. Not this year. Florida wins 30-3 in blowout fashion over Iowa in a game that was supposed to be low scoring for the Gators, in a game they weren't supposed to be doing much. They found a way. They found a way to score on offense with a nice drive, a couple nice drives, and found a way to get the defense involved and get some more turnovers there, especially through Chauncey Gardner. So 30-3, Florida wins over Iowa. This is Gators Breakdown. You can find it on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, all those venues there. You catch me every Tuesday. You catch me tomorrow morning. Yep, on the Bill King Show. We'll wrap up some more of this Florida Iowa with him. They're based in Nashville, national show there. So I'll be on Bill King Tuesday morning. And then next podcast will be next day. Joey V and I will look back in this Iowa game. We'll get Joey's thoughts about how Florida finished the season with a win over Iowa and what it means for the program. I kind of dove into it. But we'll get Joey's thoughts and we'll dive into more of also what it means for recruiting and for Jim McElwain moving forward for this Gators program. So I'm David Waters, your host. You can find me at Gators, GatorDave_SCC, GatorDave_SCC on Twitter. You can find Gators Breakdown on Twitter and Facebook as well. Just search Gators Breakdown. Thanks for the listen, and we'll see you guys later.